Okay, it is now 8 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I would like to thank you for attending this webinar about teaching toddlers. I am really excited to share with you what we're going to cover. We've got a lot to cover. The first thing we're going to look at is language, and that refers to their speech, their receptive language, and their receptive language. And then we're going to look at reading and what you need to do to teach them beginning reading. Same with math, science, social studies, and then also social emotional growth. So those are kind of what we're going to look at in this webinar. The first thing you want to look at is their language. Are they developing an appropriate articulation, meaning do they enunciate their words and do they speak clearly? Another one is their vocabulary, is are they using vocabulary that seems appropriate to their age? For example, 3 and 4-year-olds should begin speaking in 3 and 4 word sentences. Then you want to teach them how to speak clearly and how to articulate what they are trying to say. This may mean that you have to get them to slow down and speak the same sentence a few times. And then the other thing you want to look at is the syntax, and that is how they are using the words. Are they developing a good vocabulary? Are they using words that you use? Are they mimicking sayings of older siblings and things? And then we're going to talk about reading. This is very important to develop a beginning concept of reading. The first thing you want them to learn is that the text goes from left to right. You want them to know what direction to hold a book. Do they hold a book upside down? Do they hold it right side up? Do they look at the book backwards or do they look at it forwards? It is developmental to not know how to hold a book. So it is important that from an early age, you teach them the proper way to hold a book and the proper way to look at a book. Then, as they age to 3 to 4-year-olds, they should be able to properly look at a book in the right direction with the text facing the right way. Once they have mastered the direction of text, you want to start with the alphabet. They should be able to say the alphabet and should be able to recognize letters in isolation. What I mean by that is they should be able to look at a letter on a paper and tell you what that letter is. It is also a good habit to, when you are out and about and there's signage around, ask them what the different letters are. The next thing you want to teach them is letter-sound correspondence. That means you want them to know that the letter A says ah, and the letter B says buh, and so on. You want them to correlate the sound with the proper letter. So that is very important as far as reading goes. And then math. There is a ton of things that you need to teach a toddler about for math. The first one is colors. They should learn their basic colors: red, yellow, green, blue, purple, orange, brown, and black. They should be able to say those colors clearly and be able to identify when something is a specific color. The other thing that they should be learning is about shapes. You want to do the basic shapes such as a square, circle, triangle, and rectangle. Those are the basic shapes that you should expect a toddler to know. And again, you can teach colors and shapes at the same time. For example, whenever they're playing with their blocks, you could ask them, what color is this triangle? And they could identify the color. Or you might ask them, what shape is this block? And they could identify the shape. Another thing that is important for them to learn is patterning. They should be able to continue a simple pattern. For example, if you have beads and you do a red bead and then a blue bead, then a red bead, then a blue bead, they should be able to continue that pattern on. Most toddlers will only be able to continue an alternating pattern with two colors or two objects. Anything more complex than that, and they may not, it may be very difficult for them. Another thing you want to teach them is how to count. It is good to focus first on counting 1 through 10. I would have your toddler count as frequently as possible. When you're eating Cheerios or they're eating crackers, ask them, how many do you want? And then have them count out that many with you. They can always get more once they've eaten those. Another thing you want to teach is what is called one-to-one sequencing. What that means is that they can point at 3 objects and count 1, 2, 3, and know that there are 3 objects there. First, I would focus on one-to-one sequencing for numbers 1 through 5. You can use candy, you can use crackers, you can use jelly beans, you can use beads, you can use whatever you want to teach this sequencing. But it's important to teach them that 1 piece of candy means 1. 2 is 2. They need to learn that. Another thing they need to learn is to be able to recognize when one object is smaller or bigger than another. For example, if you're handing out pieces of cake, they should be able to say that their sibling's cake is bigger than theirs. They should be able to identify when something is bigger or smaller than the other. Okay, then we're going to talk about science. Science is an important thing to establish with the toddler. The most basic scientific skill you can teach them is to learn how to ask a good question. That means, how do you formulate a question that gets you the type of answer that you are looking for? So you might ask them to look at an animal and say, what kind of questions can you ask about this animal? They need to learn how to ask good questions. Toddlers are great at asking questions. Foster that skill. Teach them it is good to ask questions. You want to encourage that questioning mind that wonders how life works. A basic science skill that toddlers should know is basic animal names and sounds that they make, such as a cow going moo or a pig going oink, chicken going cluck. You should also take them to visit the zoo as much as possible and a farm to be exposed to farm animals. Another skill you want to develop with a toddler is describing an object. What I mean by this is take one of their blocks, show it to them, and ask them, how many ways can you describe this block? They could use size words, they could use color words, they could use shape words, they could compare it to other objects. Just get them used to describing those visual properties. This will come in handy as they get older and encounter more and more scientific inquiry and scientific thought. If you can teach them how to ask questions and how to describe objects using the visual properties, you are setting them up to be a good scientist. Another skill that they should learn is how to identify simple machines used every day. What I mean by this is they should know what a refrigerator is and what it does. Same with a sink, an oven, a bathtub, a faucet, a toaster, a car, lawnmower. They should be able to identify all of these machines and tell what they're used for. So that's kind of where you would cover in science. Social studies is a hefty subject for toddlers. You want to teach them how your family structure works. Their grandparents, their parents, their siblings, their aunts and uncles, their cousins. They need to know how everybody is related. They need to know that their mom has a mom or a dad or sister. They need to know those relationships. Another thing they need to know is their full name. This would help if for somehow they were to get lost or something, they would be able to state their full name. They should know their birthday and major holidays such as Christmas, Easter, Halloween, 4th of July, Labor Day, and Memorial Day. Those are all important days for them to know. As soon as they are able, it is good to teach them their parents' names. Again, this is for the off chance in case they get lost, they need to know who their parents are and their address and their phone number. It is also a good idea to teach them if they live in the city or the country and the differences between the two. So that's what you would want to teach for social studies. The last one we're going to cover is the social and emotional realm. You want to teach them to begin recognizing their feelings and what to do with those. You may use a face chart when they start to get upset and have them point to a face chart saying, I feel like this, if they can't put words to what they're feeling. You need to teach them how to express anger by telling the parent instead of retaliating against their siblings. Other common tasks that attributes that they need to learn is how to share. And taking turns goes right along into sharing. And then they need to learn the difference between mine and theirs. As I'm sure you know, toddlers think everything belongs to them. So if you can teach them to identify what actually belongs to them and what belongs to something else, that will go a long way. And also that it's not okay to take something from somebody else. You need to teach them how to ask for what they want. Another skill they should learn is not to interrupt an adult when they are talking. All you need to do is just redirect. Say, I'm talking right now, I'll talk to you in a minute when they interrupt. And just keep doing that. Don't give them the intention that they want when they're interrupting. Make them wait. Another thing they need to do is learn how to wait. This is an important skill. I would hold them off on giving rewards and gratification as long as you can to get them used to waiting for something that they want. If they can learn how to wait patiently, they will have a much more successful life. Another thing they need to learn is the difference between the truth and a lie. Toddlers learn pretty quickly how to lie. So you need to teach them how to tell the truth and when to tell the truth, the importance of telling the truth all the time. And another thing they need to learn is how to play with others. This is important because it goes into the turn taking. They need to know how to share. They just need to know how to get along well with others. Okay. Are there any questions that anybody has about what I have covered? Okay, I'm going to go back again on learning how to ask questions. What I would suggest is that for when you are teaching, you encourage your child to ask questions. Like you might take a cow, show a picture of a cow and say, how many questions can we ask about this cow? For example, you may ask, what sound does it make? What does it eat? What does it do when it's not eating? Those are all sample questions you can ask. So that is very important to teach kids how to ask questions. Are there any other questions? Okay, well, thank you for attending, and I'm going to go ahead and close this session out.